Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at what makes a modern writer great. I mean, think about it, What does it really take to become a successful author these days? I've got some interesting ideas about this, and, well, I gotta say, I'm curious to hear your take on all of this. Is it all about just raw talent? Or is it more about, like marketing yourself and playing the game?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I mean, it's fascinating, right? You need that core ability, that ability to pull people in with a story and create characters that people can't forget and use language in such a way that's almost musical, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's just the starting point, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of starting points, you sent over this idea that, and I'm quoting here, the brilliant, the overrated, and the ones who make us question how they got published.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on, we've all been there, like browsing at the bookstore. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. And I think that's where things get really, really interesting, because when you think about, like, for example, somebody like Sally Rooney, I mean, she's an amazing writer. There's no doubt about that, but she also just blew up on social media. I mean, all of a sudden everybody was talking about her, and that buzz definitely plays a role in who gets noticed, doesn't it?
It totally does. It totally does. And it makes me think about that question that we got from one of the sources, which is, is there some kind of tension there between having raw talent and then needing to be your own hype person?
Yeah. It's a really tricky balance, right? I mean, it makes you wonder what's genuine and what's just really good marketing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, for example, like, a lot of authors are expected to build this strong social media presence now and, engage with their readers online and even partner with book bloggers and even influencers. And, some writers really embrace all of that, and others just, they find it draining. But it raises a question: how much does an author's, platform actually influence what you choose to read?
It's such a good point. It's a really good point. And, I know for me, if I see a book and it's getting a lot of buzz online, I mean, especially from people whose tastes I trust, like
right, exactly,
bookstagrammers or book talkers or whatever, I'm way more likely to at least look into it.
Yeah, and that actually ties into what we were talking about before with pushing boundaries versus falling back on familiar tropes,
Right.
Like, think about someone like Colson Whitehead. I mean, he blends historical fiction with these really experimental elements, right? Like in the Underground Railroad, where the railroad is actually literal. I mean, that kind of originality is what makes you sit up and take notice, It's like, whoa!
Exactly. It's like they're doing something brand new with the language itself.
Yeah.
But then you also have trends that maybe get a little too comfortable, don't you think? Like things that get a little too formulaic.
Right, like the whole dystopian craze that we've seen over the past, I don't know, however many years. It's understandable. I mean, the world does feel pretty chaotic. But I'm starting to see a lot of repetition.
Yeah.
And, kind of a formula emerging.
I know what you mean.
Take The Maze Runner, for instance. It was a huge hit, but so many books since then have just, I don't know, they followed that same blueprint. Teenagers stuck in this, like, confined setting, battling this oppressive system. It's like, I don't know, it loses its impact after a while, I feel like.
Yeah, it loses its impact. It's like you can almost predict all the plot twists. And it makes me wonder, I don't know, is that predictability a sign that maybe originality is just lacking in some of these cases?
Well, that's a great question. And it's one that every writer grapples with.
Totally.
And one of the sources actually challenged us to share a controversial opinion on all of this, and I think I'm ready to jump in.
Okay, I'm ready.
I think sometimes we're so quick to just label something as original just because it's, different on the surface. But true originality comes from digging deep, deep into the human experience and finding new ways to express universal truths. I mean, it's about the emotional impact, not just the novelty factor.
Oh, I love that. It's such a good point. You can have the craziest plot in the world.
Right.
But if the characters feel flat, like two-dimensional, or the emotional core just isn't there, then, I don't know, it's just not going to resonate with people. It's not going to work.
Exactly. And that's where understanding all these different factors, like the author's craft and the publishing landscape and even just our own personal biases as readers, I think that can actually make you a more discerning reader. It's about engaging with the story on multiple levels. It's not just about one thing.
Yeah. I totally agree. So to bring this all back to you, dear listener, think about what really captivates you as a reader. I mean, what are your non-negotiables? Is it beautiful language? Is it a plot that keeps you on the edge of your seat? Is it characters that you can just totally relate to? Or is it something else entirely? I mean, what is it that makes you want to stay up all night reading?
Yeah, yeah. And knowing what you value can help you, when you're navigating that vast sea of books out there. You know what I'm saying? And who knows, maybe it even inspires you to try your hand at writing yourself.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And if you were going to give one piece of advice to aspiring writers today, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's really tough. Well, I think the most important thing is to just, read widely and deeply. I mean, just immerse yourself in the works of, the masters and newcomers alike. Pay attention to what resonates with you and ask yourself why. What is it about this work that I love? And then, most importantly, don't be afraid to experiment. Find your own unique voice. It's so true. That is such good advice. And remember, even if you don't want to write a whole novel, just understanding how stories are crafted and how authors build these immersive worlds and characters, it can really make you a much more critical and engaged reader.
Yeah.
And that's the real power of doing these deep dives, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's all about, appreciating the magic of storytelling, right?
Exactly. And on that note, everyone, I think that's our show for today. So until next time, happy reading.
Happy reading, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.